Before you go and spend $200,000 on an MBA, let me be the first to tell you why it may or may not be worth your time. And I know what I'm talking about because I am currently in the second year of my MBA at a top school, Duke University, and I have navigated almost the entire program and can tell you whether or not my why of going to business school was accomplished. At the end of this video, you will have a tool in your hand to help you really think about whether or not an MBA is right for you. Now, this is not really a real microphone, and it's just my little way of getting into content creation game. So let's put that down somewhere and have a real conversation. This video is going to be in 4 parts. The first part is what I call grounding, and it's my way of kind of talking with you as another human being and things that I think about when thinking about making a huge life decision. The second part of the video, I'll talk about in detail my career journey, what happened since graduation in 2017 until 2024 when I started school, to give you an idea of what I was thinking about and why I chose to go to school. The third part of the video, I'll kind of answer some of your curiosities about what is an MBA gonna do for me and what has it done for me, and hopefully give you some insight into what you can expect this journey to perhaps look like. And at the last portion, I'll tell you the one question that you must be able to answer before you decide to punch your ticket to getting an MBA education. What I mean by grounding is, before you decide to go spend money on anything, really, there's always a lingering why, whether you're thinking actively about it or it's just kind of motivating your decisions. And as somebody who has always been, I consider myself pretty ambitious, I've always had an underlying why for every single decision. And like I mentioned, it's not always apparent, but it's always somewhere there in why I choose what to do. As a result of that, sometimes that underlying desire is just because of my ambition and nothing else really. So something like going outside and looking for a name brand outfit, a name brand school, a name brand experience. Sometimes the why there is just because I want that additional clout for myself. And that is not a problem in itself, but if you're going to choose to get an MBA, you must be aware if that's something that's motivating you. The second part of our grounding assignment is helping you understand that just because you get into school, just because you attend a top school, does not mean all the goals and the dreams and your aspiration is gonna get accomplished. You still have to put the work into the experience of an MBA in order to get what you want out of it. So let's just quickly burst this big bubble, this idealistic bubble of an MBA that is probably in your head right now. Let me be real with you, it's probably not real. And what is real is you being for real of what kind of experience you need for your next step in your career and asking yourself, is an MBA the right next step for me? Okay, with that being said, we're gonna jump to my own story and lay out what it felt like for me to make that decision to ultimately go back to school. My career kind of began in college, I would say. I was meant to graduate college in 2017, and I ended up graduating in December of 2017 because I took my MCAT because I wanted to be a doctor. And somehow in my last semester of my college experience, I had the chance to work at Southwest Airlines. And I think for me, that's where it all began, where this desire for business kind of started off, was I interned after graduating college at Southwest Airlines as a health communications intern. And this is the part where it's really important, exposure. Exposure is huge, 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 huge. Up until this moment, as in my Nigerian mind, I didn't know about other kind of work existing. I just thought people were lawyers or doctors or engineers. I didn't know that there could be a career opportunity for me in the space that wasn't medical, but I was open to exploring it. And I do appreciate that I threw myself into the exploration process, because that's what took me through the next 5 years of my career. After I finished Southwest Airlines, I really wanted to have a full-time job at the time, but they weren't hiring interns, and at least I wasn't hired at the time. And so I went back home to Houston to figure out what's gonna come next for me. And it was at this point that I began to fight that tension between medical school or not medical school, go back to school, not back to school. I didn't even think I thought about business school at this point. I didn't know, it wasn't even in my mind to think about what other schools I could go to. But at this point, I knew that I had something else that I could potentially do that wasn't going back to medical school. So I decided to say, you know what, I'll give myself a year or two, which was crazy to think I was thinking this way back then. But I said, I'll give myself a year or two to figure out what I liked to do. Meanwhile, I needed to have a job too. I got my next role at Chevron. And at Chevron, I was doing something very similar to what I was doing at Southwest Airlines. I was writing all the copy, all the flyers and the email communications that the company sends out to its employees on health and wellness topics. And this is when my business desire really, really heightened, because I discovered this podcast then. It's called How I Built This by Guy Raz. And that podcast blew my mind. The fact that you can have an idea and make it into a business, and then sometimes it's a business that is doing good in the world. I was like, wow, my world opened up. I was giving myself to exploration. I was giving myself to just learning a whole lot about the world of business itself. I was starting to see that I liked marketing and content, copywriting. I was applying to jobs in magazine, Vogue magazine, applying to news companies, just all the things that felt creative, even fashion, LVMH. I was applying to all kinds of jobs that could be creative, writing or marketing, but I wasn't making any kind of progress. When I say no progress, I mean zero. The one thing I was doing was connecting with people on LinkedIn like it was my job, like my daytime job. I was connecting left, right, and center. I met a lot of people doing a lot of things. And I would simply say, hey, I'm Eunice Peters. I just graduated school. I have no clue what I'm doing. I like what you're doing. Can you talk to me for 30 minutes about what you're doing? And I will never forget, I met this lady back then, in 2017, who worked in PR at Texas Children's Hospital. Great conversation, great momentum. Nothing came out of it, just a simple conversation. Fast forward to 2018, I am signed on to a company called Creative Circle to find jobs in marketing. And I get a phone call about a job at Texas Children's Hospital. My focus would be on blog writing, basically meeting patients, talking with them, and getting their stories in order to create content for the website's blog. And I'm like, sign me up, I'm in. The crazy part is my interviewer was the lady I had met a year before, just networking on LinkedIn. That said, I worked in that job for about a year. And to be honest, I thought that I could grow in the job, especially because I had a phenomenal manager. My manager, Jen, was fantastic. She was getting me ready for what comes next. She was teaching me, I was growing. But then COVID happened, okay? COVID happened, immediately laid off. That season of my life really, really, really challenged me because I had been somebody who has put so much effort and identity in having a job and what I was doing and being able to be a big girl, etc., etc. I really kept on this work of networking with people. While I was networking with people, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, one of my best friend's brother had just graduated Rice University, and my dad was like, hey, call him up, see what he's up to, talk to him. Just my African parents, knowing how much we don't know and trying to find people to help us out. So I call him up, talk to him, and that's when he first mentioned business school to me and going through MLT to get to business school. Because I've been spending so much time learning about businesses and things like How I Built This by Guy Raz, I kind of took it seriously. And I was like, well, okay, what could my life look like if I were to go to business school? I've always thought it was gonna be medical school, but now there's this opportunity to maybe go to business school and still make an impact in the world. And let me be honest with you, I was really fighting this for about a year, if not 2 years, where I was stuck on the idea that the only way I could make an impact in the world was by going to medical school. And so every other career option, I had to find some kind of way to make an impact in it. In my mind, being a doctor was the only thing I could do, and the only thing that makes sense to make money and be impactful in the world. So all this takes me to the end of 2020, all by the way, still very unemployed. It had been 8 months of not having a job. So I get this job in 2020. It is a very basic copywriting job at a company in Houston called David Weekly Homes. Loved my time there. It was finally I was working, finally I was doing something. But at the same time, I still was fighting medical school, not medical school. So on one hand, it was a good job to have because I thought, well, if I have this job, I can maybe like work on the side to get the medical school. But then maybe like 6 months down the line, I fully said, okay, Eunice, like, no more medical school. We'll go to business school. We'll figure it out. I actually wrote down my 5-year plan in 2020. And it's so cool to look back now because I still have that journal. And that journal truly has my 5-year plan and things that are happening right now. But as I was getting to learn the process of business school and like what the career could look like, I felt that I didn't have any quantitative experiences in my belt because I've only done like marketing work. So nothing with like Excel, nothing with like analysis, nothing with numbers. And so in my mind, the next right step before going to school was to get an experience that felt more businessy. Like I really was like, I need to get in like strategy or something. So then again, I keep applying to stuff. I am looking everywhere. And back to my idea of networking. Around November of 2021, I reconnected with someone I had networked with back in 2020 who worked at Target. And I was like, hey, here's where I'm at. I'm thinking about getting a job to just get me ready to go to business school. Here's my plan, yada, yada, yada. I kept her as a mentor and she's still a mentor for me. And then around December, she emails me like, hey, there's an opening in my department. I think you could be good for it. Make sure you apply for it. I applied for it. I did not get the job. And I'm like, you know what? At this point, whatever. And then eventually one day, I remember it was like February 2022 at this point. I'm driving home. I get an email from Target saying, hey, you applied to this role in the past. We think you'd be good for it. Do you want to interview? I said, of course I want to interview. And this is, I interview for the role. I get the job. It is called vendor income expert. And that's what I was doing before business school. And what this means for anyone who's curious is I was supporting the merchants at Target, specifically the toy merchants. There's this other body of revenue that companies like Target make from their vendors. So for example, when you go to the store and you see like a end cap or you see a huge Coca-Cola representation in the store, Coca-Cola is gonna pay Target in order to have that space in the store. So my job was collecting all those contracts, helping to write the contract, and then for annual negotiation, helping to provide the buyers with the tools they needed to negotiate those contracts. That is exactly what I feel like I needed when I was saying business. And now that we have an idea of everything that was driving me and that ultimately drove me to get an MBA, we will talk about what it is and what it isn't, especially what can an MBA really do for you. And the first thing is learning. MBA is still a school, but this is the part where it goes back to my grounding message earlier. You only learn what you want to learn. But when you do go to business school, the learning opportunity is there. We start our year taking the core classes, accounting, finance, marketing, strategy. Those are things that are just basic education for a business person. So if you're someone who wants to learn, if you're someone whose background did not expose them to accounting, to finance, to strategy, to marketing, to international business, then an MBA could be for you because you really genuinely want to learn those things. Now, if you had a business in undergrad, chances are you know how to calculate NPV. I certainly didn't, and so learning was a huge driver for me, and it's something MBA can do for you. Obviously, you still have, you're the core of the learning and you get out what you put in, but the resources for learning is top tier, and I would recommend, if learning is higher on your list of I want to get an MBA, then you're the right place. Get an MBA. You're thinking the right thoughts. The second thing is exposure to fields you may not know of before. I didn't have, again, an exposure to the business world and the business jobs and the kind of functions that exist there. To be fair, there are so many functions in the world today. The work I've done, people are like, what, that exists? There are so many functions out there, but if you're specifically interested in investment banking and consulting and whatever else your school is known for my school, it's like healthcare for the most part, some marketing, some retail, but we are known to provide like consultants and investment bankers. If that's something you want to be exposed to and want to recruit for, and you're like prepared to make a pivot into, then yes, an MBA is certainly for you, because most of these schools are magnets for companies that are looking for analysts and bankers and for associates when it comes to consulting. I pulled up the employment report for Duke in 2025, and 34% of those who left Duke Fuqua in 2025 went to consulting. 20% went to financial services. 15% went to technology, 7% to healthcare, and 3% to consumer packaged goods. As you can see, the skew is very heavy in consulting and financial services. And that's not accidental. So that's something else you should be thinking about, is that if you're looking at this as a pivot opportunity into those fields, then yeah, an MBA makes 100% sense for you. Now, before you take my word for it, I will say, you still have to prepare to recruit for these industries. Think about it. There are hundreds of thousands of MBA applicants and MBA students every single year at all kinds of top schools. They also want to go to consulting, and they also want to be IB people. And so there is still going to be a requirement of you while you're in the program to recruit for this job. Just because you got into Fuqua doesn't mean you're automatically an IB girly or like a consulting girly. Like, honey, you still have to do the work to actually expose yourself to the industry and to learn the ropes of how this industry is recruiting, and to be recruited in the industry and to get a job. Like, it goes on and on and on. But certainly getting an MBA will expose you there and could be an avenue to get to those industries. The third thing an MBA is networking and resources. You're going to meet a lot of really smart people doing really cool things in business school. Now, meeting them doesn't mean you are them. So just separate that for a second. But if your goal is to network with these people, is to be involved in what they're building, or is to build something yourself, then you are thinking rightly that getting an MBA could expose you to do that network of people. But at the end of the day, this is an exposure. You get to determine how you want to use that exposure to those people. So what I'm saying is, just because you're in business school will not mean that you're an entrepreneur. You have to seek out the resources and seek out the networks that can help you get to where you want to go. And that's why it's important for you to know, where do you really want to go? If you're an entrepreneur that's building something, or you want to build something, by going to business school does not automatically mean you're going to build that thing. You have to tap into the resources that school provides that's going to help you build that thing. And by the way, you might still want to recruit for other jobs as well. So just keep in mind that having this ideal world of MBA is going to help me learn business and build business, it's not. You get to do those things in the MBA. The MBA is a vessel, and you, my dear, are the driver and the conductor of the vessel. With that being said, this is my last and final words for you today. Number 4, an MBA is not an automatic ticket to get you to where you want to go. I will be the first to tell you that. It is not going to punch a ticket just because you went to the school. The name of the school is not going to just work for you. You still have to do the work. You still have to push through. You still have to be clear in what it is you're pursuing, whether it's going to be a job, whether it's an entrepreneurship experience, whether you just want to break for 2 years and travel and meet people. I mean, listen, we all do what we want to do. But if a pivot is right up your alley and you think an MBA is the right path for your pivot, just by getting the MBA does not guarantee that you're going to make that pivot happen. You're still the driver of the boat here. Obviously, I personally am like depending on the Lord all the time, and He guides me and He gives me the grace to do, but you still have to do. So here's my parting question for you is, what are the 2 to 3 outcomes that you're going after and that only an MBA can solve for you? That is the question you have to sit down with. Be clear on the outcome, and be clear if the MBA is the only opportunity and the only space that can do that for you. If your answer is yes to those outcomes, then by all means pursue an MBA. And if your answer is a bit shaky, well, maybe you have to do some more conversations, some more coffee chats to really understand what you're going to be getting yourself into. Because trust me, $200,000, that's the ticket online, but there's so much more cost that comes with getting an MBA. And don't hear me say that you shouldn't pursue what you want to pursue, but hear me say, equip yourself with the information you need in order to make a very wise decision. That's all for now. Thank you so much for joining and for conversing with me through this time. The next round of this series is going to be like my how for the MBA. So come back next time to learn about that. But until then, I am wishing you the very best of luck. I am standing with you. If you have any questions at all about the MBA, about life in general, please put them in the comments and I'm happy to answer them. Also, I promise you this channel is not becoming some MBA like pro channel. That's not who I am. But this is something I feel super strongly about, and I want to create a space in the corner in my life so that you can find whatever it is you need that could be helpful for your journey. All right, I'll talk to you later, and I'm wishing you the best of luck. Bye. Mwah.